Gents, huge game coming up in the Champions League. Galatasaray against Manchester United. This should be a heck of a game in Istanbul. As always, it's a great atmosphere there, and it's going to be no different for this one. And it's now or never for Erik ten Hag's Manchester United. After that crushing defeat away in Copenhagen last time out, they're up against it, right, Nick Mendola? And they really do need, I would say this is must-win for them against Galatasaray, and a very good and dangerous Galatasaray side at that. So this should be and has all the makings of a Champions League classic.
It does, and you have to think how quickly Erik ten Hag can be dragged right back into the mire and the muck because of what's coming ahead for them. And I think it's almost as important for them to find their best mix, to find how things are going to work for them. He's had a long time. This is an Erik ten Hag time to shine. He has had a week and a half to have his team prepared to go to Everton and then go to Gala. And this, I feel like it's a test. Is that weird to say? I know they've won a few games in the league on the bounce, and I just think this has a potential ugliness about it, this fixture. And there's a lot of pressure, and Gala's not going to make it easy. That place is going to be a, let me borrow a term from my friends overseas, a cauldron. I think this will be a cauldron.
It really will be. And Man United fans I've spoken to over here, they're not delighted with the way they're playing, but they will point out, but we are the form team in the Premier League. Going into after the international break, ahead of it, they'd won 4 of 5, and it wasn't pretty. And Andy, it wasn't pretty at home against Galatasaray in the return leg. They lost 3-2. Obviously, just chaos at the end there with penalty kicks, Icardi, you name it. It was they got the win, Galatasaray, and they deserved it the way that they played. But they're dangerous, right? Zaha, Icardi, Ziyech on the counter-attack. Even at home, I feel like this is the way that they should probably set up against Manchester United, let them have the ball and come out. And we've seen that United, in that return game against Galatasaray and against Copenhagen, very susceptible on the break with the defenders that they have. So how is this going to actually play out in the cauldron at Galatasaray?
Yeah, it's going to be another tough one for Manchester United. It's just, they all are these days. Even the ones that they're winning, they've not won a single game in any competition this season by multiple goals. So the games that they have snuck out, and including their only points in a Champions League group with Galatasaray, no, all due respect, Copenhagen, all due respect, they have 3 points at home in a 1-0 win over Copenhagen thanks to Harry Maguire. Like, that is where Manchester United is at. And I always enjoy listening to Nick kind of talk himself into a pretzel to believe, to buy into Manchester United and why they've got a chance and this and that. And I'm over it. I'm over it. Ten Hag, we thought we saw some progression late last season, and we saw some tactical stuff that was coming together, and they were beginning to control games and have a little bit more possession and be tough to play against. And this season, they've just completely abandoned all of that. And it's back to, it seems like it's a big tactical change or big personnel change. And some of it's due to injuries, of course. But it seems like there's some drastic change that's meant to be the quick fix every time they take the field. And that's not how it works. It does not work. You need consistency. You need continuity. You need players understanding how to play with one another. And again, injuries have played a big part in that, especially an important part of the team. Right through the spine, the 2 center backs, the defensive midfielder, and those 3 players have essentially not played this season. And the results, I think, would reflect that. So it's just, I don't know where the chances come from. Outside of Højlund having a fantastic finish from a really tough chance, I just don't know where this team is going to score goals right now, because they don't have a system to get the ball from their own defensive third into the attacking third into a dangerous area. And that sounds so simple, but they don't have that.
Yeah, they don't have that. And like you said, it's going to be so tough in this environment. I mean, I remember growing up watching the 90s, the great teams Galatasaray had with Hakan Suker up top, scoring goals galore, and United went there on multiple occasions in the Champions League, and it was the welcome to hell sign was the most famous banner up outside. And this is really, really important, like Nick said at the top, for Erik ten Hag to show that he can deliver, and almost a tactical masterpiece, right? To try and pick off Galatasaray and try and get something out of these United attackers that, again, at points last season, it wasn't great. It wasn't liquid football. It wasn't fantastic to watch, but they got results and they were dangerous on the counter, and they got the best out of the players that were their most dangerous. And they need to somehow do that away in Turkey in this huge, huge game. And Nick, it's desperation times for United, right? Looking at the group, obviously Bayern, they're absolutely flying. They're through. This is must win, but also a draw, I guess, isn't terrible for United, because then they have Bayern at home on the final group stage game. But even if Bayern rotate players out of the lineup, still going to be tough for them, right? So I guess how do you approach this game of United tactically?
That's 100% must win. And
okay.
Yeah, it's 100% must win. You're Manchester United, and there are very few opportunities for you to continue as like to Andy's point. You can't keep leaning on that, but this might be the time to lean on that. That might be the time to walk in there with a certain amount of swagger and says, all right, boys, listen, it hasn't been good. Our $100 million man, or whatever the number is, Anthony's been poor. Mason Mount has been poor. A lot of these guys have been poor, but guess what? We're Manchester United, and we don't go out, because if they lose this game, they're not going to be in Europe in January. I'm not picking them to beat Bayern Munich. If you think Bayern, for all the battles they've had with Manchester United, for the almighty sort of pride and if not arrogance in Bayern Munich, you think they're going to throw out a bunch of 17-year-olds, or do you think they're going to be like, let's kick these bums to the curb? So this is
got some pretty good 17-year-olds, by the way.
Well, that's also true, right? Yeah. So no, listen, I think it is must win. There is, for everything associated with this club, it is a must win. And Andy, I have talked myself into several situations before. Not right now. Not now. I'm leaning on the fact that there are some really good players in that team. But Ten Hag, geez, dude, fix it.
Yeah, these Man United pretzels we've been twisting ourselves into all season, they taste bitter, let's be honest, right now. They're not tasting good for Manchester United. Nick, score prediction-wise, what are you going? Are you going to predict a miraculous victory for the Red Devils?
I'll go pretzel-related here, and I'll call it a salty 2-1 win. An angry, ornery 2-1 win.
Andy?
1-1. They'll keep themselves alive to the final day. They'll pull level on points with Copenhagen. They will have a chance, but it's going to come down to the Bayern. You're right, Joe. They had a good counter-attacking system going the kind of final 10 games or so, right, of last season. So what did they do in the summer transfer window? They sign a hold-up center for it. Just make it make sense. Make it make sense. They had something working, and then they sign for $80 million, I believe, $80 million-ish in that neighborhood. A center forward who is, by all reports, their third or fourth or fifth option on the list that doesn't fit that system at all. He's been good, but he doesn't fit that system. And so that tears apart effectively everything else that the team was doing functionally prior to his arrival.
If only they could have signed Harry Kane. I'm sure that's what pretty much every Man United fan is saying out there. But I'm going to go with Nick, a very salty 2-1 victory. I think it's going to be a lot of chaos there. There's going to be a lot of drama. But Galatasaray, I've been really, really good. I watched them a lot in this Champions League group stage. And if United underestimate them for 1 second, they are going to take them to the cleaners and destroy them on the counter-attack in particular. So it's all set up for a very tasty clash in Istanbul. Galatasaray against Manchester United. I'll be covered on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com on what is a pivotal game in their Champions League campaign for Manchester United. Can they win and give themselves a good chance of getting to the last 16? Or is it all going to come unraveling like a poorly assembled pretzel once again for Erik ten Hag? Let's wait and see. It's going to be a good one in Istanbul.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.